You were the first detective to go on the case.
That's correct. Let's just clear the air because people would actually wonder why, how we got together again. And
Yeah,
that's simply egotistical on my part, Googling my own name, as I'm sure we all do. We
yeah.
want to see what's written about us. And in my case, I've had a lot of high profile cases in New York City over the years. So there's been a lot of press clippings. I still do some work. I like to see what's written about me from time to time. And when I saw my name and in the little Google paragraph with Guppy, I immediately opened it, ended up on your webpage,
Hmm.
um, and actually got hooked on reading your webpage and the responses and the back and forth. And you have, it's very interesting. I agree with most of your politics, which is actually what I was sending you the initial email from.
Yeah.
Hi Peter, how are you? This is Ray Burke. Do you remember me? Um, and I was very pro what you were saying. So it started out as just two people who haven't spoken in almost 30 years, um, uh, getting in touch, saying hello, seeing how both sides were doing, and then we started talking about the Guppy case since it was written on your blog. And I was giving you some insight into certain things that were said and done that never came out for a variety of reasons. And being that it's been all these years, they've Guppy and Marsh have both served their time. There's no reason that certain things can't come out now. So that's where we started. And at that time, I mentioned to you that I had you. I think at some point said something about my memory being um, very good on this particular subject, and it wasn't because my memory was good; it's because I had written everything down.
Hmm.
Um, and that being one of many cases that I dealt with, I ended up including it in a manuscript of a memoir of life in the NYPD, um, which I eventually agreed to send to you, and which to me shows a lot of trust, by the way,
I
because
appreciate that.
not many people have read it.
Well, I've sat on
Um,
this, as you know, Ray. I've sat on this for a long time. I could have,
yes,
you asked me not to say anything about it. I didn't say anything about it.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, initially when I was, you had asked me some questions about the the Guppy case itself. There's been obviously some back and forth between you and Darius over who knew what and who said what, and you had asked my opinion, and I had given it to you freely. And as a matter of fact, in another chat that we had, I was very frank with you um, on what I believed happened, the way the events occurred, who was right, who was wrong, however you want to look at that. So I don't pull any punches. I'm up front. But I agreed with you on an issue that you've been wrestling with Darius over the years, particularly that of a artist sketch that Guppy had made here in New York City a few days after the crime had occurred,
Yeah, that's
uh,
right.
in which he claimed that this person in this artist sketch, the person who robbed him in the hotel room, um, years later claimed it was not you, but somebody else.
Yeah.
And we both remember the day you walked into my office. You could pull out the date here if you wanted to and give me a few minutes. Um, but the first thing I did was look at you and look down at the artist sketch, and it was like,
You
artist
said
did a
to me,
fantastic.
you said to me, and we hadn't been introduced. You said to me,
Correct.
"You're Peter Risdon, aren't you?" And I
Yes.
said, "Yes." And you said to me, "Wait, I want to show you something."
Yes.
I remember that.
That's true. Yes.
And you went and you
And I had a
got that
small office
sketch,
where, yeah, and I showed it to you. It was
and
like looking in a mirror.
and that was how you knew. You knew it was me from that artist sketch.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the sketch that Guppy gave immediately at the time of the incident, saying it was one of the robbers.
Well, he described you. There's never been a doubt. From the day you first walked into my office, and we spent that day and most of the next day together. But there's never been a doubt that that sketch was you, for a number of reasons. A, it was you. I mean, I'm going to hold it up to you, and although we both, it's been 30 years or 29 years, that was you back then.
Yeah.
um,
The interesting thing is, actually, I had a moustache when it
I
happened in
know.
New York. I had this terrible big moustache. It's
I've
embarrassing,
seen that.
my dark secret. And
Hmm.
he told me to shave it off. As soon as we got back, he said, shave it off, you were seen. A maid saw you, she's described this guy. The police have a description of a guy with a big moustache. Shave your moustache off. And he was trying to get me to change my appearance so he could say that he hadn't recognized me. I was just this acquaintance from London. He'd mentioned that he was going on a trip with the gems, and I decided to rob him. And it was clever, if you think about it, because it was a
Everything was
backstop.
clever.
It was clever.
The whole case was clever.
Yeah, it was saying,
They,
if it went wrong, he could say, hey, I was robbed. There's the robber. I described him.
well, he did describe you to a T. Um, what, you know, whether he was going to at some point point a finger at you, I can't say he was or he wasn't.
I think it
And
was
that's
intuitive.
speculation. Well, it's speculation on your part, for that matter,
Hmm.
because it didn't happen.
Hmm.
Um, but as the case wore on, years later, Guppy went as far as to say, um, I think maybe in his own book, as a matter of fact, that he went through the details in his head of how this was going to be planned. He wanted no slip ups, no mistakes. Um, the reason you were even brought into it, it would have been just as simple for him to never show up with the gems at all. I mean, put them in a safe deposit in New York City, sit back in his room, have a sandwich, toss the bed around if he wanted to, then pick up the phone and say I was robbed. He was afraid that both he and Marsh were going to be separated once back in the police station, possibly polygraphed, a lie detector test, and his fear was getting caught during a polygraph. So he figured that he would be able to almost close his eyes and recite everything that happened because it did happen.
Yeah.
The polygraph wouldn't catch it.
Yeah.
When you think that far ahead or that detailed and involved, why would he not describe you? Of course he should describe you, because if he doesn't describe you, he's now making something up, and that would come out in a polygraph.
Well,
So of course he's going.
why not describe you with a moustache?
Well, correct.
He was. There was that. There was a suggestion actually that what he was going to do, what he and Marsh were going to do, was look at some people in a restaurant the night before, and just not stare at them, but just see them enough so that they would describe that table of men, and that would be credible because it was a real description.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't do that. He wanted this insurance policy. See, I didn't when I came over to New York. I hadn't seen that artist's impression. I didn't know about it. I knew he had framed me from other things. That was just the icing on the cake. But I knew his plan was to go to South America for 6 years and have me sent to prison for robbery. And when he came back, I'd have been in jail for 6 years. There'd have been no appetite to reopen the case. They'd have had a conviction. It would have been a done thing, and he could have resumed his life. That was his intention. Notoriously, I tapped his telephone, and I did other things to find out what his intentions were, and I discovered those were his intentions. So the artist's impression is good to see that, and it's good to hear you talking about it, but it was just the final confirmation of something I already knew.
Mm. Oh well,
But
it was a good case though.
it was a good case. I mean, you were there's some things that stick in my mind from your account of it. One of them is James Bond, but if we come to him in a second.
No, for lack of, I wrote my manuscript in my own voice.
Yeah.
It's the way I would describe somebody with a British accent, suit and tie, coming in from the British consulate,
Yeah.
which is what it was.
But this was later. If we just
Actually,
hitting the case itself, there were rumours pretty quick that these guys were well connected. That there was a rumour that they may be members of the royal family, which was
correct.
not true. But you
Yes,
had this pressure on you that if you were going to cast suspicion on them, you had to be damn sure.
we had to. No, not even damn sure. Damn sure, I guess, is probably what I would have said, but 100% certain.
Yeah.
That we did receive information within, I'm guessing, the first 24 hours. Again, it's 29 years ago, but within that first day, that initial time
I think
period,
it's 19 years ago, isn't it?
1990. You're right. It's 19 years ago.
Just seems
Yeah,
like
I keep
longer.
saying 29. It does seem like 30.
It does.
19 years ago. 19 is long enough too. But yeah, that we got information that Guppy and Marsh were both. Well, Guppy was at least related to the royal family, and when that happens with any police department, it would happen the same with Scotland Yard. You tread on, you walk on eggshells.
Yeah.
Is about the best way I can describe it. There are no accusations against somebody with that type of power, especially politically and internationally in this case for us. You have to be very careful on what you say and what you do.